Hello everyone. The microphones aren't going to work for me. So microphones are going to work for them, but I don't have one right now, so I'll just yell. So Peg Clark, who started the Historical Society in 2012, always told me, you have to start on time. So in honor of Peg Clark, I am starting on time. And I'd like to welcome you all to our program tonight. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Terry Robinson, President of the South Hero Bicentennial Museum and Secretary of the South Hero Historical Society. And Barb Smith is our President. She couldn't be here tonight. Our Vice President is Kim Kinney. He's right here. And our Treasurer is Dolph Wurzing. He's over there. And by the membership papers and the books that we're selling. Our technology person is Jim Hoig, and he couldn't be here tonight. And our museum liaison is Ron Phelps. And he's also Vice President of the Bicentennial Museum Group. We have the two groups. And our trustees are Kathy Merrihew, right there, and Sue Crowley, thank you Sue, and Heidi Chamberlain, and thank you Heidi for helping us get everything set up tonight.
The technology doesn't work for 1 minute.
The museum is open, I think you all know, Wednesdays 10 to 1, and we'll start Saturdays in June. And the other thing I wanted to tell you was we do have a program scheduled for May 20th, and it's the History of Cider Part 1, before Robin Way was there. When it started, and actually John, we're going to ask you to contribute to that a little bit too, because you were a part of that. The history of cider, the beginning of cider. And we also have in July, Keeler Bay Variety Part 1, Pour the Horns. And that one we've been trying to get for like 5 years. Finally got them to come.
Champagnes.
That's it. Champagnes. And then we have Eagle Camp with Mike Guernsey and the Guernsey perspective on Eagle Camp. That one I think is either June or August. And we have a couple more plans, so I'm excited about that. So tonight, so can you hear me? Okay, I'm doing all right, good. So tonight, we are very fortunate to have longtime residents, John Roy Sr. and Bernita Torville, here with us to share some stories about taking care of the roads over the years, plus some other stories. I want to thank John. When I saw him this week, he gave us all these old South Hero Town reports, a whole bunch of them, and if you come to the museum, I'm just going to show you this one. See, it says Mary Phelps. There's old dedications. This one's all about Mary Phelps you can read. This one is Bertha Branch Lowe, if you remember Branch's store. And these will be in the museum and you can peruse them, and it's kind of fun to look at them. Thank you, John. Must be Sharon had them around.
My mother helped too.
Your mother helped too, okay. And John Roy grew up, I think you all know him, but I'm just going to do a little quick summary. Grew up on his parents' farm, which is near the train station at the junction of Tracy and Station Road, right up the hill from the creek. He's been a farmer all his life and also a hardworking, contributing member of the South Hero community all his life. He's been a select board chair. He was for over 25 years. He was Lister. He was on the water board, the board of adjustment, the volunteer fire department, and he's been road commissioner for over 35 years. And John is someone who you really want for a neighbor. And he's my neighbor, and I really appreciate him. And Bernita has lived off East Shore Road ever since she married Junior Torville over 73 years ago. Did you know it was that long ago? And Bernita was a farmer's wife. She also spent 48 years in South Hero Community Service. She was a select board assistant clerk. She was the town and school clerk and treasurer assistant clerk for, I don't know, 20-something years. Then when Connie Thompson, who was clerk, retired, she became the town clerk. And she's been lister. I don't know how many years you were lister. You barely just gave it up. A lot. So 48 years total that she's been doing jobs for South Hero. Thank you, Bernita. And Bernita will tell you a little bit how life was different when Junior was road commissioner. Winters were different, equipment was different. And we're so happy Bernita has decided to come tonight. She's a dear friend to me. Thank you, Bernita. And some of you might be able to add things. Some of you might participate. I heard Ricky Bro is here, and I know you work with Junior, and we are glad to, we would love to hear what you have to add, if you have anything to add, and we will have, we'll remember to do questions and comments at the end. And this is being videoed tonight, and it's on the South Hero Bicentennial Museum website with all our other programs. And I guess without further ado, I guess we're going to start with John.
Well, I'm not sticking just to the roads, I'm sticking to the town. Life in South Hero has changed in 85 years. The town years ago was agriculture, tourism, and orchard.
Is it working, the microphone?
Yes.
They say yes,
Can you hear it?
Yes.
but you can't. So Heidi,
Okay, no good.
maybe it's, the speakers are back there.
Okay,
I don't think they're on.
yeah.
And a few people worked off the island.
There we go.
A little louder, John. Good.
Life in the 40s and 50s, farming and apples was the way. Life was simple. The roads in the town were mostly dirt and traveled rarely by much traffic. There wasn't much traffic. In the early days, the farmers would scrape their roads through their property with a team, and you got a picture of that.
Oh, yes, let me show that.
With their team and scraper. I saw Charlie Wright's scraper, and I asked him what he did with it, and he said, I used to scrape the roads with it. Charlie Wright was on the West Shore. The first road grader that I knew, Mr. Patno was the road commissioner, and he was doing our road. And when he got done the road, I don't know where he was going, but he left the road grader by the road. And of course, being a little kid like I was, I always liked to investigate. So I went over and climbed up into the grader, but the seat was so low I couldn't see, so I climbed up on the seat. Unbeknown to me, the radiator was behind the seat. And if you know what got burned. And that was one that you had to turn the wheels, there was no hydraulic to it. In 1946, it was Ellsworth Patno. 1952, Chester Douillet. I'm going to stop a minute right here. Chester Douillet was the man that was grading in North Hero, and the train hit the grader and really smashed the grader up. Plus, Chester was real bad, and but he lived through it, and lived many years afterwards. But the grader was jumped. That's the only accident that I know of.
Hey, John, what intersection was that?
What was that?
What intersection was that?
What intersection?
It was in North Hero.
Oh, was it North Hero?
He was working in North Hero.
Okay.
It's on the train track.
Yeah,
He was on the train track.
train track.
Yeah.
And let me see, that was in 1952. See, the train got done in about 62. So it must have been just a freighter coming down through, because I think passenger trains also. In 1954, Elmer Sanor. 1964, Ellsworth Patno came into the scene. 1966, Charles Trovo. In 1990, Roger Douillet. In 2000, John Bullock. The only non-residents were the last two people that had never, well, Roger did live in South Hero, but he lived over in Milton, Colchester, and John Bullock lived in Elbert. I remember as a boy they paved the station road. They didn't pave it like they do today. They didn't have a paver come in with the ready mix, and they had to lay the stone down, and then they put down the mixture tar, and they rolled it back and forth with a grader. And that's how they did the station road. I remember that, seeing that. It was a lot of fun, because back then Malcolm Allen had a truck, his brother had a truck, one of the Patno boys had a truck. And when they were drawing gravel, they would give us boys a ride if we wanted to ride. We did. As time went on, farming was getting done. A lot of the apples were done. And a lot of the tourism camps that were camps and restaurants, had a cafeteria and stuff, they were done and then split up into houses. The roads began to get traveled a lot more. And we started to pave the roads more than we used to. We built them all. I gotta go back a little bit. The best that happened to the roads was when they built the sandbar. They had a pit down at Boros, or where the trailer park is today. And after they got out of there, the town was able to go in there and blast and use the stone, and we built up all the roads with that stone. Put about 2 feet of that stone, and then covered it with gravel. And that helped. And that made a fair base to the roads. And we're still adding a little stone and stuff, and better drainage when we pave the roads. And we only have about 2.4 miles of road that aren't paved. I do have another story. I was plowing, Roger Douillet, we had a big storm, and I was plowing with a Ford ton truck, and I was over on the West Shore. And I went down West Shore and came back up West Shore and turned up the Sunset View, and I noticed that 3/4 of the way up to the first farm, there was a car stuck. So I got there and found out who it was, and I got him out, and they had, boy, I can't think of his name.
Library. Ed Worthen.
What's this building's name?
Ed Worthen.
Worthen.
Ed Worthing was in there.
Ed Worthen was
And they were taking him home, and I said, well, you can't make it home with a car. And so Ed got in my truck, and I took him home that night. That was a long time ago. Any questions or anything that you want to hear?
Why don't you let Bernita do her part, a little bit about the same time period as you, and then you can do some more. John?
What?
Well, she knows, she can do a little bit about when Junior was, you know, the time period you talked about earlier, and then you can say some more. Bernita, why don't you do a little bit about how, what it was like way back?
Go,
Yes,
go
Ron?
there.
Junior made a statement quite a while back, there's nothing any cheaper to maintain than dirt roads. So he was not all for paving.
So Bernita, why don't you tell us a little bit what John was talking about, you know, like what Junior did and what it was like way back in, so he started in '66.
He started working for Ellsworth Patnell in '62.
Okay.
And then in '66, and I'm pretty sure our town meetings were held where the town office is now. That was our meeting hall. And we had our open meetings there, and people were nominated from the floor to run for the different jobs. And someone, I don't know who it was, nominated Junior for road commissioner. And then somebody got up and nominated Jasper Santor for road commissioner. And everybody, of course, got up and passed with their ballots, and Junior won. So that's when he started in '66 and sold all his cows at that point. We were going to have to build bulk tanks, and we could not afford it.
Drove him out of business. Drove him out of business.
Yeah.
Won't take.
And so that's when Junior started. And there was only Junior and one helper, part-time helper.
Was that Ricky? Was that Ricky Bro, or who was that?
Ricky Bro, is Ricky here? Ricky. Didn't recognize you. Ricky, what years did you work with Junior?
Yeah, it was 68, 69. I worked part-time for the town, for Junior, and then I worked part-time for you and Junior, because the Junior had the dump truck.
Yeah.
So when I wasn't working for the town, I was driving the truck for you.
Okay. And you only had one truck and one grader.
One truck and one
You
grader.
didn't have any loaders. All you had for tools was chainsaw and shovels.
We needed the chainsaws because we used to heat the town garage with wood. So whenever any trees came down, we were out there cutting them up, hauling them back, throwing them in what used to be the woodshed behind the old wood means.
So you cut trees along the roads
Yep.
to heat the garage. There would be like a cold or something. And then when Ricky, you got done, I don't know if Malcolm came to work right off.
Yeah, I don't know, I got done probably early 1970, late 69 or 1970.
I think so.
And I
it
think
was
Arthur started shortly after that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there were many storms, many storms, bad storms. And then the worst one that's ever been declared, the worst storm for Montreal, Quebec, and the Champlain Islands was the famous storm of '71. And it started town meeting day, Tuesday, March 3rd, 1971. I think I've got it right, I'm not sure. But it started snowing at town meeting. And I remember saying to Junior, wow, this looks like it's going to be a good one. And of course, you all know, a lot of people that were here during it, you know what kind of a storm we had. the sandbar was closed. It was all the roads that were west to east. Sandbar, Town Line, and a couple others. And I remember this, it was the third day in the afternoon, Junior comes into the yard. We were living at the farmhouse. And he comes in and he says, get the kids ready. He says, you don't have any heat. We had no electricity, no phones, no nothing. And he says, get the kids in the car. And I have a little black Volkswagen. He said, you stay, he says, I gotta plow Kibbe Point Road, and my mother and father lived in Kibbe Point Road. So he says, follow the grader so that you can see the grade, you know, see. Well, we got up on top of Bierman's Hill. I couldn't see the grader. There was nothing. Couldn't see nothing. And but I crept along because I knew he was plowing ahead of me. We got down on Kibbe Point Road, and we got down to where Trumbull lives. And I said to myself, oh, I don't know where he is. And we couldn't see him. And pretty soon, he didn't dare to back up because I might be in the road. So pretty soon he knocked on the door and he showed me where to go. So we got to my mother's. One of my kids, one of my girls, I think it was my youngest girl, she jumped out of the car and ran across the field. And I thought, oh my God, we're gonna lose her. She ran across the field to my mother's house. They lived at Lullabears. And another thing, I had one of my daughters that was on a honeymoon up in New York or Montreal or somewhere, and we didn't know where she was. I mean, it was a scary time. And then somewhere along that time, the state got in touch with Junior that the state grader was broke down. And they needed to get the milk trucks to the Grand Isle Creamery. So they asked him to go up Route 2 and go into, you know where Grand Isle Creamery was? It's off the road where the station used to be. And he got that done. And I didn't see him, I don't know. He said he came home, slept for 3 hours that night, but back out again. But there's some roads that couldn't possibly be plowed, any of them that I had mentioned before. And then, you know what happened? The state called in the National Guard. And I have the clipping here. The National Guard plowing out Town Line Road.
In South Hero?
In South Hero.
Wow.
He plowed the whole, he tried to do, they did the whole road, because the whole road was plowed. And then they went down to King Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they came in and did all the roads in the island, I think, at that time.
Yeah, they did. But they did this one first.
I can this out.
Oh, okay.
There, I think I can move it out a little bit, let's see.
I think the town grader was there somewhere.
Is this the town grader? Disaster area, roads opened. Wow.
Buster Chamberlain used to work for the town of Grand Isle,
He was a state highway.
and for the state highway department, and he would grade the roads with that grader.
They said the grader, the town,
They broke
the
down.
town grader, yeah.
Yeah.
And the state grader, yeah. And I've seen bad storms since then, but nothing like this. The wind was blowing, it had to be blowing 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, because it was just a whiteout.
Wow.
stations
And
to
then-
Canada were closed.
Yep, everything.
Motorists jammed into motels wherever they could find room.
Ricky, Sylvia was telling me today, Ricky's wife, that she was in school in Burlington, and she had a couple riders, and I don't know how far she got, but they told her Sandbar was closed.
Yeah, they closed the road at Chimney Corners. They wouldn't let you come.
Chimney Corners. Yeah, yeah. And I had another picture here, it was very interesting to me. They didn't, Junior didn't know how, because they used to have frozen culverts, and if they didn't thaw them out, if it rained, the rain would fill the ditches and it'd go right over the road. So he and Jasper devised, it's 2 or 3 barrels, and it's on top of a pickup truck. The bottom barrel is burns wood. The top barrel was full of water. Then they had a hose that they thaw the culverts out with,
So the hot water went in the culverts.
as much as they could.
Oh my goodness, 1968. Can you see, John?
I can see.
You've seen it? Did you see it?
That's Jasper and Junior.
That's amazing to have that picture. Huh. Well,
Carrie, you're
Yeah.
gonna have all these pictures because I'm cleaning my house out.
Okay.
We need a bigger museum.
Oh.
This is a picture of me with Junior Torville in the grader. 1976, I think, when I lived in Williston. But that's me right there on the right with Junior. Do you know where this picture is? Did you, what road it's on? Can you see?
Well, it looks like Whipple. I don't know.
No, it almost looks like Landon Road.
Something at the end.
Yeah.
It's like Sunset View.
South Street?
Yeah.
It's like Sunset View, they're all the same.
We take
It's Sunset View Road.
road heading to South Street.
But this house is too close to the road.
Well, you were there, weren't you?
The house is too close to the road to be there.
Yeah, he picked you up, Terry.
Well, he told me I wasn't allowed to go in the grader, it was illegal. But I would always say, Junior, can I fit with you? And it was all one seat, but I snuggled in. I snuggled in.
Terry was like our 4th daughter.
And here's another one, and this one is a different road. And this one, or is it the same road, but further down? Same road, further down. That's me with my daughter, who's 51 now. She was 2, I think, in the
Off to
picture.
the left.
It can't be the
is
same
where
road with
Camp
the power lines
Tacoma.
there.
So
It's
Kathy thinks that's Camp Tecumseh on the left.
on the left. Yes, yes.
I think that's Wessor's house on the left.
Yes, Sunset View Road.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're probably right. Oh, that's a great shot.
So then Jerry said, I'm gonna get closer. That's us, so. Lots of wonderful memories.
Who are the other 2 kids?
Katie and Kim, my 2 daughters.
Oh,
Okay. Oh wait, I was gonna show you this. This was one of those dedications. In one of those, so this was 87. This is 1987, and the town report was dedicated to Junior because he had just retired. And this was a little thing they said about Junior. So he had worked under Ellsworth Patno, but there are 2 Ellsworths, John. There were 2 Ellsworths.
Yeah.
Was
His son, Buddy,
Oh.
he had a son, Buddy, who was Ellsworth.
And he was Bert? The first one is Bert? And Ellsworth is
Pat,
the...
we used to call him Pat. Pat.
Oh, Pat was the
Pat.
first one. Okay.
Pat, oh,
But his brother lived next door in the other house.
yes.
Okay. All right, so you were going to just tell that Junior had a plan. You were going to say a little bit about his plan when he was the road commissioner.
Well, for one thing, I remember some of these roads during that time, and I'm sure John does. I remember going down Kibbe Point one night, and we almost got stuck. We were in ruts like that. And some cars had to be pulled out. It was a baby shower being held for me. And I remember people got stuck in it, they didn't make it. And so Junior said, when the rocks came available at Apple Island, he started building up those roads. I don't know how many, a good share of them.
Did a good share.
Yep, a good share of them. I remember one was Kibbe Point. Part of West, remember part of West Shore. I remember some of the roads. And he used to, I can't remember how many miles of dirt road there was, but he used to figure that with the holes that come in the washboards, that he should get to every road within 2 weeks. So he was on that grader a lot of the time. Grading the roads. Maybe a lot of you here have seen him do that.
After we scraped the roads, we used to put chloride down. And why I remember that was we used to get the chloride in 100-pound bags that come in on freight trains in Essex. And we'd go over with the dump truck back up to the railroad car. Put a couple of planks across from the back of the truck to the railroad car. And we'd start hauling 100-pound bags to load in the back of the truck. And then we bring them over to the barn, put them in the barn. By the next day, if you had leather shoes on or leather gloves on, you had to throw them away because they'd shrink down to nothing. But I remember Guy Goulet, young guy's father, Guy Goulet, helped us one year. Of course, you'd start out in the morning. We were young, full of lemon vinegar, picking up those 100-pound bags, and we'd try to race one another at the end of the truck. Well, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you'd be pretty worn out.
Yeah.
And then Guy Goulet would start picking up 2 at a time. Come on, boys.
Wow. And John, didn't you used to say you only had a shovel to, they would use a shovel to put sand on the road?
Years ago, they didn't have a spreader in the.
Oh, I remember that. Did you ever do it?
What
With
did
the
you?
shovel?
With a shovel?
They'd have a couple of guys
No,
in
we
the
had a-
back
we had a
of the
spreader.
truck
You had a spreader?
Yeah.
with a
Okay.
shovel and throw it out as they drive along onto the road. Well, it's improved, you know.
And John, you were, go ahead, Brian.
You know, we got a town garage now, that all happened. Malcolm was still working in the garage, and I happened to be there one day, and I said, well, Malcolm, when you get done with it, I'll buy it for the town garage. And several years later, he said, were you kidding? And I said, no, I wasn't kidding. So we got it all set up and everything, and we did buy the garage. We're pretty complete. We built the salt shed now. Some people think it's an outrageous thing, but if you were to study the sand pile out there, and when it rains, you see these white lines coming out and headed for the ditch. And also, we would have to replace the salt and that sand for next year because the salt and the water would wash it out. And But we have a beautiful salt shed now, and we have a beautiful building, and we're well equipped. We have a lot of things now. Drivers have to have a CDL license. They have to have, we have random tests for drugs. They come in and they look over the building and make sure everything is in its spot. Hazardous material is in a lock cupboard and stuff like that, and safety. That the grinder has a shelf that you put something on to grind it. You don't just hold it. And it's a lot more paperwork to run in a town than years ago. They just graded the road and sanded the road, put gravel on the road. It just worked. Now there's paperwork.
Now there's paperwork. And you also said a big difference when Junior started. There was a grader and a truck
And one man
and one man. And actually, for quite a while, Junior did it all alone.
and we had awful storms then. We aren't getting the storms down.
Right,
Like we used to them.
right.
They, well, Roger Dewey was all alone too.
And he was alone.
Yeah.
Roger was alone, and John Bullock came, and I thought there was only gonna be one, but they added another man on.
You had, there was a guy that was on there.
What?
No, he was on for a while. After Junior, they hired, okay. That's part of the course. Can't remember the name.
Roger Dewey.
No,
Before him? Before, not Arthur Falcon.
no. After Junior, there was, Jim,
Oh. He didn't stay around.
he only stayed for a while. Jim, that's awful, like.
That's all right.
Names just,
That's all right.
And at that time, the town garage is where Granny's attic is now, with the two base doors that are there.
yeah, that's where the garage was.
You used to have a little Ford, I don't know, a 9N tractor maybe with a sickle bar mower on it.
That was,
That's what we used to cut the
Junior had
roadside
his
with.
own
That was
bucket
Junior.
loader.
Right.
Junior bought one for himself in, I don't know, late 70s.
And then you bought a backhoe so that we could do
Well,
ditching.
yeah, well, I still have that.
But the town didn't have any.
When Junior get done, we did purchase a backhoe for the town when we were still over in Granny's
He wanted to
attic.
keep it.
Yes, Junior took his backhoe back.
But we had to have something to load sand with, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know who he used to hire somebody to go over and load the sand for him, and with Robinson, some Robinson. It was early when he was first on, Junior. But I know he used to call somebody, I need to load my truck. And I don't know who it was.
I have a couple stories. I don't want to interrupt this because this is special. My father was on the select board, and you were talking about getting the stone over at Apple Tree. Well, his process was a half a mile a year. They would blast the stone and build up the roads. And there were 6 miles that they had to do, and they did that over the 12-year period.
Wow.
And the last one was on Whipple Road. And
Yes.
they finished up Whipple. But before that, like you said, going down West Shore Road to White's Beach was so muddy, you'd get stuck. You could not go down West Shore Road.
You
It
wouldn't
was so
believe
muddy.
that. You'd
And
never
then
believe
the
it.
same over on East Shore where Bob Krebs lived. You couldn't get to that farm at all during mud season. So by building up the roads 2 feet, half a mile every year, they also, the owner there was happy because they were beginning to open up a view to the lake, which never materialized till these people now have opened that up and put the motor homes that you see, that was created by the town blasting the rock out. So they benefited from that. She was also, the owner then, hoping to benefit from it, but it never materialized until these people finally opened it up, grassed it over, and you see what's there. It's a beautiful view there. That was all rock. And so a little story about back in the day, Charlie Stevens on Kibbe Point Road kept track of the books and the budget. And there was no computers, he did it by hand. And like Bernita said, any money issues had to come before the voters on town meeting day. And so Charlie would present the budget. Well, Charlie would also sit in the preparation of the budget, which was done by the selectmen, which they still do. And Charlie was not in favor of this half a mile a year process. And while it was a bargain, because we got the rock free, we still had to blast it, and we still had to put it on the road. And Charlie, being down on Kibbe Point Road, probably didn't want that done, I'm not sure. But Charlie would intentionally leave that item off. Even though we sat through all the meetings and everything, but he had control in town meeting as to presenting the budget. And people were about ready to vote when Dad would realize that Charlie had left that off. And so he'd have to add it back in. And he'd come home and he goes, Charlie did it again. So that was, and so it was completed. And the reason everything is able to be plowed now, or paved now, is because that rock was put down. And so it saved a lot of money when people finally decided, well, we want to pave these roads, Whipple being one of them, West Shore being one of them, that base was there. So they didn't have to add the base, it was already in place.
And that was Virginia Companion that donated.
Yeah,
all the
Virginia,
stone.
yeah, that owned Apple
I
Tree.
think everybody should know that. She was the owner of Apple Island at the time,
Yep,
and she gave all that stone for the whole town
Wow.
to donate the whole stone, so her name definitely needs to be mentioned. Virginia Companion.
and then a little story about Junior. So we had the insurance on the town back then, and so I got a call at the office, and they said the town truck's up in a tree. I go, what? Well, back then, our office was on South Street in the farmhouse, and so I wasn't far because they said it's on West Shore Road, and just a little ways past South Street. So turn on to South Street, go on to West Shore Road, you go down a hill. Well, back then, and still now, if it was dirt, what happens is the dirt road was frozen except for where it opens up into a field on the left. So you go down the hill and there's a field there. Dad used to call it the Baldwin Orchard. It belonged to us and still does. So anyways, the sun would beat down and melt the dirt road. And so you put a pressure on that big plow and you're going down frozen road and then you hit soft road. And if we've all experienced that, and the plow digs into the dirt. And that's what happened to Junior. And he plowed right into that dirt. Well, it took that, you know, how big that plow is on the front of these trucks. It took it and flipped it around and the truck went on top of it. And indeed, It was up in a tree. The truck was up, the plow underneath it. How Junior ever got out of that truck, I still don't know. Because I met him there and he's out, but he didn't have a ladder or anything. I don't know how. No, he got out of that truck. Are you all, yeah, I'm fine. He said it was a hell of a ride though. That was my story on Junior.
He took another ride down, you know where Doris
Brownell. Brownell?
Brownell is, at a hill. He went down backwards. Ice storm. So whatever he sanded it, he sanded backwards. Sanded backwards. But I've got a story to tell you about one thing I just remembered. When he was building up the road on Town Line Road, there were some people lived there that didn't want that road product to standard. So Junior's pushing the stone, and pretty soon this person is laying in the middle of the road, right in front of the bridge, and would not move. So they had to call the sheriff to move.
I remember that story, Dad coming back and saying, "Can you believe someone laid in front of them?"
She laid right in front.
So this says Palisades, South Carolina. I never could figure out where it is. Do you think it's something to do with the Apple, that campground area?
I can tell you where it's at.
Where is that?
That's Apple Island Resort before they did the blasting.
You think
Okay?
so?
All the blasting on the lakeside was done without state permission, after Virginia Capagnas sold it. So the people that own it now did that, and created all that new campsites. Because that ledge used to be solid all the way through to Round Pond.
Well, so that's what that is.
And you look at some of these other pictures from a distance, if you're going from Milton to South Huron, you can see solid ledge over there.
I remember coming home from work one day, and it was always a quarry. It was all, and then one day it wasn't, it was all filled in until we looked more like this.
They paid a healthy fine for it, but
Oh, they did?
they did not get permit to do that.
Terry, this is for you, for nothing. This is a new truck, I don't know what year that they got Junior. He had an old,
I believe that's Robinson Point.
What kind of work did you have to do during the ice storm of '98?
we had it for a while because I remember painting our camp with it.
So, let's see.
My paint, the white hands all over it. We painted the camp, our little camp.
He wants to know about the ice storm of '98.
Yeah, what kind of work did we have to do during that time
Oh,
for
the
you
ice
guys?
storm.
Wow.
I remember it, I think everybody that lived here, they can all remember the ice storm. I know we were out without power for, I don't know, a whole week.
Yeah, we were out for 7 days.
Yeah, whole week. That was terrible.
There's something about South here over here. John, did you have something else? You were,
You know, I was looking,
yeah.
I'd like to add about Alan Kinney. Alan Kinney and I took the fire truck and a piece of pipe and put the nozzle in the pipe and thawed a lot of culverts that way.
Yeah.
Many nights we were out there thawing culverts.
Huh.
Well, that's why they did that thing, but they didn't get very far with it, I don't think. It's like that thing that they made, Jasper and Junior made,
Yeah.
but they didn't have enough force. They melted some of it, but
Yeah,
not.
but that's how we bought the ice in the culvert. We go in with that pipe and that, with water and,
What do you do now?
well, we've changed a lot of culverts, the steel culverts, and there are a lot of plastic culverts. And, maybe they were put in with a little better slant or something, you know, so that
Okay.
they drain out better.
Okay.
We have a-
John, would you explain to the people that may not know why you need to unplug the culverts?
Well, the culvert is, the water's coming down the ditch and then it's gonna go across the road or else flood the area, so you put a culvert in across there. And if that freezes, you're gonna get flooded again. I think the federal or the state people made a big mistake when they put the road across the creek. They put a small culvert in and kind of killed the creek.
I thought they were gonna fix that. I thought they were gonna fix that last year. Put a bigger culvert in.
We have repaired our culvert, but I'm talking about the main road culvert.
They have talked about increasing the size of that.
Well, they should, they ought to have it so that a boat can go through. Because I used to
Yeah,
go out to the lake from my house in the spring of the year with a boat.
That road now is town road, isn't it?
That isn't town road, that's
It's still state,
road.
still
road.
state.
Yeah.
So how come somebody doesn't get after them?
I'm talking about the big new state road.
Oh, the big one, that's
Right.
small culvert.
Yeah,
yeah.
Wow.
They have trouble with Beaver getting in there and plugging it up.
right. And I think they have an idea that if they did that, people couldn't steer, see?
Yeah.
But,
I have a grandson-in-law to be that works for the state of Vermont, has done some work down there. Because they go down in there with some excavator, clean that beaver trap out of there.
Yeah.
It's only good for a year or two, then it happens again, but they have discussed increasing that culvert.
You know, people don't realize that years ago, that creek was, come springtime, was a live, living, everybody was there, they frolicked, they spit, they speared fish, they shot fish, they caught fish on line, and it was a great thing, you know, it was really a busy place in the spring of the year. And now it's, that,
Yeah, and it went the full length all the way to the lake. It went, the water went all the way to the White
Right.
Beach.
you just had the culvert there from my old house.
Yeah.
And,
Terry, tell the John Roy story.
What? Okay.
20 years ago, we bought property on Lakeview Road. And I'm coming home one day from work, and John and John are there, John Bullock and John Roy, standing looking at, we did not start, been excavating yet, and they're putting a road where I can put the driveway. So anyway, John Roy looks at me and goes, what are you going to do with all your stuff? And I don't know what he was talking about. What are we going to do with all my stuff? What stuff, John? Well, you're going to move. You've got to have stuff. And I said, oh, I don't know. Well, you can use my barn. Well, where's your barn? First barn down on the right. Right, use your barn. So I went, saw Terry that night, and I said, I met this guy, John Roy. And he's putting a driveway cut in, and he said, well, use his barn. I'm not putting my stuff in a barn. So I said, well, I'll go look at the barn. So this was Brim's barn, I guess what was, John, right? Yours, but prior to you, I guess. And so I go in, and down below, there was no cows, which was one thing, and everything was cleaned out below. So we filled that lower part there, filled it, and I didn't know what we'd have done with our stuff. So then, what are you going to do for the Roys? So we invited them over for dinner. So John, Sharon, and Michelle came. So it was very nice. And Terry, we had just built this house by Bernita's son, and we wanted it to be accessible. Doorways, accessible, and also Terry's running through the house with Michelle in the wheelchair, seeing if it fits through all the doorways, or if Randy made some too narrow. But that was a nice evening saying thank you to John. And Bernita, you mentioned a little black Volkswagen. That you had. And one day, I don't know, were you with Junior or was I with Junior? We get in and we're driving down the road with the black Volkswagen. And the rails were up from the train tracks, but the ties were still in. So Junior turns, going north, and over the ties with this little Volkswagen. We didn't know where we were going. He stops, and were you in the back?
I was in the back, he
You were in the back.
pulls a gun out, he shoots,
He gets and shoots.
and 2 duck fall down, and he says, Terry, go get them.
Yes, I know. They were parked up there waiting for him.
So he went down the railroad, trail, and he shot 2 ducks, and he says, go get them. So I went and got them, we went back to the house, he's teaching me how to pluck them. You remember, Cindy, he's teaching me how to pluck them, and then you cooked them or did something with them. All right, we're gonna let John finish.
Railroad, you know, I used to stay down in the station when I was a little boy. I liked to go down there.
Mr. Doty.
Mr. Doty. He was about as wide as he was tall, about as wide as he is wide. Anyway, he was there for years and years and years. And I remember one time, well, the section gang,
My father was the head of the
head of the section gang, they were gonna clean the floor up, so they threw a lot of water on and mopped it all up and everything. But the water, we couldn't get the water, so we came up to the house and borrowed a bit stock for that end bit and drilled a hole in the floor and let the water out. There was always a lot of fun down there. I remember this lady said to Mr. Doty, what do you people do in the winter up here after all the tourists come? First we fumigate, he said, then we rest.
Then we rest.
I don't know if anybody else in here, you remember Mr. Doty.
Oh, yes. Well, I
So
don't
anyway,
remember.
finally he's gonna take a vacation. And we boarded the new station agent. And he said to my father, that place stinks. Well, Daddy said, get some air wick, and everything. So we went and got 2-3 bottles of air wick. He didn't pull the wicks out, he just took it and spread it around. But that was quite a thing. But what I liked about the railroad when it quit, I had a 50 Merc. And I could sit on that railroad track and go down the railroad tracks and don't touch a thing. I didn't have to let the air out of my tires or nothing, I just had to get it aligned on the track. That's the way I went.
Oh, yeah, Rick Smith and I used to do the same thing. You'd go way out to the causeway and the railroad fell. The only trouble is you had to back up all the way back. Because you couldn't turn around out there.
I don't know if it was good or bad, the train left, but,
Oh, I loved the train. I loved the train. I wish we still had it. I had free pass. So I'd go anywhere on the train.
It created a lot of people in town. I know that from my grandmother's story.
I didn't.
Somebody asked her how come she had 11 kids. She had that very 5 o'clock whistle on the train.
That was a busy place there. If you were a young kid, and you could have a lot of fun down there. Of course, the cannon factory was there, and also the bean factory, where they cleaned beans, took the dirt and shucks and stuff out of them.
There's the train station.
Yeah.
This is coming down.
No, I left it home, I'm pretty sure.
John, tell him about Mr. Doty's son and what he could do in there. He was a handicapped person, but he could run that teletype. He couldn't speak.
Susan, what'd you say?
Say so.
Tell him about Mr. Doty's son that was handicapped but could run that, what did he do, a teletype?
Yeah. He was brilliant.
Mr. Doty's son was, I don't know.
Oh, I think so.
Touching all the buttons and all that. And It was just, he was something, you know, he was very funny to look at, his face was all pockmarked, but he
But-
knew what he was doing in there, even though he couldn't speak. Remember Francis, his name was, his son.
But the boy did the books,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
would, and today I looked at it, I can remember how we did it, and you would have thought a computer printed it.
Yeah.
He printed every figure perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Larry and I used to sit in the ditch, and when he'd come walking down from the house, "Gonna shoot you, John." "Oh, don't shoot John, don't shoot John," even though he was crazy, you know, that way. But he was,
Yeah.
he wasn't dumb, he was just,
No. He was,
Savant?
yeah, I don't know what his failure was, but he was very smart.
I think I read he won an award. I remember reading at the museum, he got a state award for being like the fastest.
oh, the old man did.
Oh,
Oh,
that was his father.
Yeah, that was his father.
That was Doty.
That was his
I
father.
don't know what his first name was, but
Huh?
what was his real name? Wasn't that his last name?
John and Francis.
John?
John was a boy. My father bought his car, let me see, it must have been in the 50s when he bought it. It was a 38 Buick, had 18,000 miles on it. You know, and so Dad started driving it and it just wouldn't go. He had to, so he got some stuff and poured in the carburetor, tried to clean it out, he didn't. He had to do a motor job on it. Because he just put it down from the house every day, you know, didn't go very far. I don't know what to expect from this town in the next 100 years. I'm not gonna be here. But at one time, there was 30 farms, several orchards, and we're down to about 2 orchards. I go down Hill Road and I look, and there's some beautiful houses down there, if you go down there.
Another thing, when Junior was first, you probably remember, okay, there were roads in town that weren't plowed.
Yeah,
One was Whipple. The other was the end of East Shore from our old farmhouse down
down by White.
and down by White,
Yeah.
down by White, but there was another one. I can't think of
Hewitt.
Hill.
Hewitt. Oh, no, Hewitt, Eagle Camp Road.
Eagle Camp.
Yeah. Nobody lived on it. There was no houses. So they didn't plow.
There was nobody living on there. Nobody lived there, so there was no sense of plowing that. Any questions from anybody that wants to ask us about what?
So, John, what changes do you like and what changes do you not like?
Be honest with us.
He already told us about the paperwork he doesn't like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I just think that it's, I don't really know, I won't see it go, but if I had my choice, I'd rather live back in the 40s and 50s, you know? And,
John and I used to be listers together too.
what?
You and I used to go around listing.
Listers together.
I can't talk.
Yeah, we were both listers.
And who was the man, other person?
John Phelps at one time.
Needling.
John Phelps.
That was Needling. Wasn't
What?
it?
John
Niebling?
Phelps, was he lister then?
No,
No.
So, John, was it Niebling?
what?
Was it
No.
Niebling?
No, no.
Niebling was with Cindy and
Yeah.
Guy. Guy Witch.
I think it was Guy Winch or Harvey was with us some.
I was with Harvey. He was a great guy, I'll tell you.
I remember one day,
I remember him getting bit twice in one day. He didn't fear dogs, he'd go up to knock on the house and he'd get bit.
I remember we were going to school, remember that night?
Oh, that was,
And we were going down the interstate, we were going to Shelburne. And just before you get to, now it's Bay Road under the bridge there of that campground, this trailer truck started to go by us. Well, ahead of us was a small compact car. And the next thing we see, it's underneath the trailer truck bouncing around. And it threw it right up onto the bridge. And it caught a fire.
and the trailer truck ended up,
And the trailer truck just got past the bridge and stuff and went boom right into the woods. And
down, there's a gully there, he went way down in the gully.
I went up there and I said, give me your fire, are you all right? And he said, yes. I said, give me your fire extinguisher. Went back and put the fire out and we continued on to Miss our class.
And didn't somebody call Sharon once?
Oh, we were listening.
Oh my God.
And we were going out on Jackson's Point. And some woman in town called my wife and said, I just saw your husband and he's going out on Jackson's Point with another woman. I thought we were supposed to talk about the Bull Road. We want to start talking about how many private roads there is in this town. I'd like to measure those because I think they're probably almost as much as public. You know, you take that Jackson Point Road is quite long. The road down Phelps Lane is quite long.
Phelps Lane.
You know, you take all these roads, private roads, Lakeside, Gifford Lane there,
Featherbed Lane.
Featherbed Lane.
One on town line at the
I know down
Yeah,
on
Shiny Farm
Skyland,
Road.
end. Run.
Skyland has asked once if we would accept their road, but they gotta be up to standard to accept them, you know. And Mr. Kinney went down
We have one by my house.
and it wasn't up
That's
to
all
standard,
I'm
so
going.
we didn't fix it.
Aller Bay Way is a long one,
Yeah, you're out.
yeah.
There's a lot of private roads and I don't know what is gonna happen in the next 50 years, you know. You take, there's a lot of taxpayers on Featherbed Lane.
30 houses on that road.
30, you said?
30.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What would you like to happen there, John? What do you think should happen?
Well, I think if anybody's gonna build a road today and have any idea that maybe the town will take it over, they better build it to specs to begin with.
Okay, so the roads aren't built to specs?
No.
No.
I've got the map, but I haven't.
And, I think that, I don't know how this, if we're gonna grow anymore or not, but it's, my brother lived in Vermont and he said the taxes got it and he's gone and he's moved already. I guess I'll stay here. I bought a cemetery lot, so.
I'm just going up on the
Why'd you buy a lot? You got plenty of land.
Well, you know, when I was a selectman, I had to tell this person he could bury his wife on his land. Remember that?
Mine's already in the ground.
Then
I
that
know,
happened.
he,
I don't know
husband came in and he said, I want to marry my wife on our land. And I didn't know what to tell him. I had to get in touch with somebody in the state. And they said he could, but he had to, if he ever moved, he'd have to move her too.
And you have to be so far away from any water, source of water.
Yes, there had to be a limit as to rate. And he did move, and he did move.
Did he move her?
He did. Well, it is 8:11, so I think we need to call it a night. But is there anything else you wanted to say, John or Bernita?
Are you ready to go?
No, you know, I've enjoyed South Hero, but as a young, the kids today are a lot different than kids back when I was a boy. You know, we were outdoors, played ball, and my grandkids or great-grandkids just stay inside and play on the computer. So I think it's right now, I think they ought to be outside. I just hope that South Hero has always been a very conservative town, and we ought to stay conservative so people can afford to live here. And,
Well, I think
time will tell.
I was one last year that said I was gonna sell everything. My taxes went up $4,500 last year.
Yeah.
If they go up this year again, I don't know.
Well, just more wealthy people moving into town all the time and driving the poor folks out.
Well, it's a beautiful town, the roads are fairly good, we've got a pretty good crew.